Sunrise over Clear River was beautiful. The mountains framed the sun, the three moons aligned with the tallest summits of the range, and the clouds never got in the way. Young Drush cock-a-doodled into the air, and people woke up, eager for their day's work. Faran got out of bed and helped his father feed their forge, made sure all the ingots were ready and accessible, cleaned all the tools of any dust, and opened large doors at the end of the room to ensure good airflow. That's when Faran noticed how quiet the town was. Instead of the usual line of farmers asking that their plough blades or horseshoes be mended or replaced, Faran was faced with an empty street. Curiosity pushed Faran to step further out of the forge, and he saw a group of villagers at the centre of town. He gained permission from his father to see what was going on, and approached the small crowd, seeing it was centred around a trio of Saurians, tall reptilian people that were twice the size of regular folk. And at their feet was the mayor, dead. "Which is why you should thank us. Clearly he was too weak to protect you from bandits and raiders, which is why we felt it was our duty to step in," one of the Saurians was saying, his scales brighter and healthier compared to the other two. "This is the part where you thank us," said the tallest one, towering over the mayor's wife. The mayor's wife looked up, anger and fear visible to Faran, but she slowly choked out, "Thank you," before she burst into tears. "Why, you don't seem to be that grateful. No smile, no song, no dance. Why, maybe me ought to help you out," said the third, who sported a gold ring on his left index finger. Before anyone could reply, his hand flew to his belt and drew a knife, launching it inches from the kneeling folk's foot. She jumped back in surprise as the Saurians laughed, and the other two joined in, throwing knives at her feet to make her move around, doing her best to avoid being hit. The Saurians laughed, a horrible and cruel laugh, until Faran heard a shout from behind him. "Hey, egg humpers!" Faran turned around to see his father standing in the road, calmly walking towards the trio of Saurians, carrying his crossbow. "Why don't you three point out which one killed the mayor? I'll let the other two of you go." The Saurians stopped their chortling and looked at each other. Brightscale stepped forward. "Well, neighbour, that sounded like a threat. Are you threatening us?" Fran's father nodded. "I suppose I am." "Well, for the threat to be legitimate, you have to be shown intent to harm. Why don't you make it official and point that bowcaster our way?" Faran's father was confused, but complied. "I suppose I'll do just," he spoke, his speech interrupted by a knife to the throat. Faran hadn't even seen the Saurian's hand move. One moment it was near his hip, and the second it was extended towards Faran's father. The Saurian walked up to Faran. "Young man, you just witnessed what happened, didn't you?" he asked, placing a hand on Faran's shoulders. Faran nodded, otherwise paralyzed by fear. "You heard him threaten me and point his crossbow at me, didn't you?" Faran nodded again. "So we agree it's self-defense, then?" That wasn't a question. Faran nodded anyways. He'd always be ashamed of that final nod. "Good. Now why don't you pick up that dagger of mine for me, like a good neighbor should?" Shink, 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 shink. Sunrise over Clear River was beautiful. The mountains framed the sun. The three moons aligned with the tallest summits of the range. The only things getting in the way were the tall post to which Faran's neighbor was tied up. Faran had been forced to build that post, dig a hole for it, and supply the necessary rope. Well, he hadn't been forced to. The Saurians had asked him to do it as a neighbourly favour. Faran knew what happened to those who weren't neighbourly. Shink, 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 shink. Sunrise over Clear River was beautiful. The mountains framed the sun, the three moons aligned with the tallest summits of the range. The only thing getting in the way was the smoke from Regal's house as it burned. He hadn't been neighbourly when the Saurians had asked for one of his quartz. Shink, 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 shink. Sunrise over Clear River was beautiful. The mountains framed the sun, the three moons aligned with the tallest summits of the range, and the clouds never got in the way. The people of Clear River had learned to be neighbourly. Shink, 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 shink. Sunrise over Clear River was beautiful. The mountains framed the sun, the three moons aligned with the tallest summits of the range, and the clouds never got in the way. But the quiet of the lonely road into Clear River was disturbed by the steps of a newcomer. Shink, 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 shink. The door of the tavern creaked as a newcomer entered. He was tall as a Sauri, but had the skin and rounded face of a folk. He wasn't as muscular as an orc, but he was halfway there. His head was covered by a wide-brimmed straw hat, and wore simple trousers, and on his back was a simple traveller's pack. His torso, however, was covered by some kind of quilt, tucked up around his neck, and ended halfway down his thigh. The newcomer surveyed the tavern, and saw that it was empty, save for the bartender, and a Sauri with bright scales. The newcomer approached the bar, sat on a stool, and his hand emerged from the slit on the side of his covering, with a trough of copper coins. The folk, happy to see payment, scurried over, and asked what the newcomer wanted. Something local. The folk nodded, and a minute later placed a tankard in front of the newcomer. The Sauri observed the newcomer drink, then drunkenly got up, staggered over, and sat down next to him. "Well, howdy. You're new here, aren't you?" The newcomer said nothing. "Well, since you're new to Clear River, I just want to let you know how things are around here. You see, we all try to be neighbor..." "Can I smoke here?" the newcomer asked the bartender, ignoring bright scales. The bartender just nodded and scurried into the storeroom, terrified of getting involved. "Now, interrupting isn't very neighbourly," the Sauri said. The newcomer pulled out a pipe and gently jammed Sweetleaf into it. "Well, you're right. How can I expect a newcomer to know about our customs, such as our non-resident smoking tax?" The newcomer pulled out a tinderbox and lit the Sweetleaf, gently inhaling it. Brightscales ogled the tinderbox with obvious jealousy. "Now that is a fine device, friend. Where did you get it?" The newcomer, for the first time, turned to Brightscales. "Killed a tax man," he said, blowing smoke into the Sauri's face. Brightscales was stunned for a moment, then laughed. "Well, friend, it sounds like you're a dangerous element, and we don't like dangerous elements in Clear River, so why don't you give the town a gift of friendship to show us you mean no harm?" The newcomer reached out again, and placed 3 more copper coins on the table. Brightscales grinned and reached them, only to find that the newcomer was gripping his wrist. "They're for the drink, not you." The newcomer let go, got up, went around the bar and poured himself another drink. Brightscales decided to reach for the coins again, when his hand bumped into something. He looked down and saw that it was a knife embedded in the bar top. It hadn't been there when the newcomer got up, and Brightscales hadn't seen the newcomer throw it. Brightscales had had enough. It was bad enough that his companions had left him here to watch the town while they went hunting, but now this asshole was disrespecting him. "Well, looks like you're determined to not be neighbourly, so I think we should take this outside." "Why? Your fists don't work indoors?" the newcomer asked, not even looking up. The Sauri grew angrier, reached to his knife belt and threw his dagger at the newcomer. The Sauri was too drunk to fully register what had happened, but there was a loud crack, and the next thing Brightscales knew, his dagger was clattering on the floor. The newcomer calmly walked over to the dagger, drink in hand, picked it up, and walked over to the Sauri. "You dropped this," he said, jamming it into the table. He reached out with a silver coin, placed it on the bar top, and spoke loud enough for the terrified bartender to hear. "The silver's for the knife marks left tonight on this nice wood." The newcomer turned to Brightscales, making eye contact. "Just being neighbourly." The newcomer turned and made for the door, finishing his drink as he walked, and placed the tankard on the table nearest to the exit. Brightscales simmered with rage, then leapt up after the newcomer. He followed him outside, pulled out his knife, and shouted at the newcomer. "Hey, asshole!" The newcomer saw Brightscales throwing the knife, his aim unhindered by his inebriation, but once more there was a loud crack, and the dagger fell onto the ground. Brightscales, alongside the residents who were peering out of their windows, saw what had made the noise. A whip now lay on the ground, trailing from under the newcomer's covering. "One time is an accident, second time is a coincidence, the third time makes it serious," the newcomer said. He didn't shout, but his voice carried to all the observers. Brightscales realized that the newcomer wasn't any traveler or wanderer. Bryce-Giles needed to do something to save face. Bryce-Giles suddenly had a fantastic idea. 2 knives. Bryce-Giles got into position, his hands poised to draw and throw before the newcomer spoke again. "Before we continue, you should go back and pay for your drinks." Bryce-Giles smirked. "I don't pay for my drinks." "You will." Before the newcomer could say anything else, Bryce-Giles reached for his belt and threw a dagger with each hand. Crack! As expected, the human had managed to knock one dagger out of the air. Bryce-Giles looked at where the second one ought to have hit, before he realized that the human had grabbed hold of the second one. Then Bryce-Giles realized that there was a lump in his throat. Not a metaphorical one from fear, but something tangible. He tried to reach for the knife in his throat. His hand never got that far. The newcomer walked over to the Saurian's corpse, retrieved his knife, collected Bryce-Giles' coin purse, and entered the bar. When he came out, he walked straight for Faran's home, and knocked on the door of the forge. Faran slowly opened the door and saw a silver coin in the newcomer's outstretched hand. "Prepare a pyre." Faran nodded, accepted the coin, and watched the newcomer leave. "Be careful. His friends will come after you," Faran shouted after the newcomer. The newcomer stopped. "How many more?" "2 others." Faran jumped at the sound of 2 more silver coins landing by his feet, and watched with awe as the newcomer walked away from Clear River. And Faran knew, no matter what happened, that he'd remember for the rest of his life the noise the newcomer made with each step. Shink, 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 shink.